Welcome. Thank you for joining us today on a very special edition of the History Files. We are here today at St. Peter and Paul's Catholic Church in the City of Independence, and we are going to be doing a cemetery walk. This cemetery walk is going to highlight prominent families in the City of Independence, as well as the parish, as the parish celebrates its 150th year. Thank you for joining us on this special edition of the History Files, the 150th anniversary of St. Peter and Paul's. We hope you enjoy our history and you enjoy our program.
Attention! I used to say that when I was a staff sergeant in the Army during World War II, but now I just say attention when I need to corral my kids and try to get them to listen. My name is Walter Becker, and I was born in Wamedy, just a few miles from here. I attended a country school until 8th grade, and then I had to stay home and help on our family's farm. My mom and dad, Phil and Elizabeth Becker, worked 600 acres, raising beef and dairy cows, as well as sharecropping. And although there were 11 of us kids, believe me, we were all raised to work hard. During World War II, when I was 21 years old, I was drafted into the U.S. Army. My small claim to fame is that during my military career, I drove for the famous military general George S. Patton, Jr. He was quite a character, and I think he appreciated me as a driver. However, I wasn't behind the wheel when he later died in a car accident in Germany at age 60. Some of the areas I saw as a young sergeant and tank commander were Tunisia, North Africa, Sicily, Normandy, France, and Germany. I must have been a decent soldier because I still hold the record as the most decorated military member in all of Trempealeau County. Once, I even saved another soldier's life. Afterwards, I received a Distinguished Service Award in addition to other awards for bravery, but I was only doing my job. I love to tell stories, but the war stuff, it's not something I shared with a lot of people. To say war is hell is absolutely right. I'm sure he would have done the same for me.
Attention! Hello, my name is Marge, and I also served during World War II as a psychiatric nurse. The war was hard on everyone, and as a nurse, I saw the need to provide medical services not only to the wounded, but to those who were suffering the psychological scars that come with war. Many of them were just young kids yanked out of quiet, rural areas like me and handed a gun before they were even out of their teens. They were put to work fighting the Germans and Japanese. My military title, you ask? Well, in less than 3 years, I was promoted through the ranks to that of major. This is practically unheard of in today's military, but I must admit I put in the work to earn it. During this time, I saw soldiers all around me struggling. Because of the need for mental health services, I set up a psychiatric hospital in a vacant castle in France, since many U.S. servicemen passed through there. It was a place where guys could get the rest and the treatment they needed. After I got out of the service, my college friend, Phyllis Boland, invited me to a family wedding. It was in Waumendy, a small community in western Wisconsin, and even though I grew up near Sparta, only an hour away, I had never heard of it. There I met a handsome soldier who also served in World War II, and boy, did we fall hard for one another. Perhaps it's because we both loved to dance, and on the weekends, we spent most of our free time dancing or visiting Walt's parents. In 1947, we got married and started our life together on the South Side in Independence. Later, in 1960, we built a home on Lower Ash Street, and that's where we spent the rest of our lives. In 1948, the year after we married, our first child, Patricia, was born. She was followed by John Java in 1949 and Bill in 1950. I enjoyed working as a nurse after I left the Army, so with the additional challenge, however, of having 3 kids, we decided to slow down a bit. Later, our son Robert Oddie was born in 1955, followed by my namesake Margaret, who we call Peggy, in 1960. In addition to raising 5 kids, I worked as Director of Nursing at the Trempealeau County Healthcare Center for decades. It was a lot, but I was always a go-getter. The employees I supervised thought I was tough, but fair. Me, tough? Maybe it's because when I was in the Army, my rank was much higher than Walt's.
And she never let me forget it. I enjoyed living in Independence and had a lot of friends who I could share stories with. I also liked watching our kids as they grew up, playing sports, participating in school activities, and more. While my wife was so proud of our kids, I kept my feelings closer to heart. Among them, we have 2 nurses, a businessman, 2 that worked in construction, and one of which was the mayor. They all made me proud, and between them, we have 10 grandkids. I guess Marge and I have both had a great life.
Come on, Walt. Let's get going. We're going to visit the in-laws and then go to a dance in Alma. Ten hut!
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I was just finishing praying the rosary. My name is Helen Liga. I was born to Paul and Mary Wojny Swoboda in 1893. I grew up in a close-knit family with 5 children total, and a relatively small number of children for that time. My brothers were Louis and Joseph Swoboda, and my sisters were Clara Schmea and Sally Scraw. As a teenager, I joined St. Peter and Paul Church Choir. I loved to sing so much that when I was older, I became the choir director and served in that position for many years. I can't even count. I fell in love with Roy Liga, and at 29, a relatively older age for many women, I married him. I was pleased that he was also a practicing Catholic. We were so happy together, and like my parents, we also had 5 children. Boys Edmund and Marcel, and girls Aggie, Rita, and Teresa. Together, Roy and I participated in many facets of the church. I took pride in our parish, and at a young age, I became the president of the Elizabethan Society. Oh, you don't know what that is? Well, in 1943, it became the Parish Council of Catholic Women, and for 40 years, it has been an important part of our church. I also belong to the Rosary Society. I served many a lunch as part of the funeral lunch committee and was president of the Arcadia Deanery, PCCW Deanery twice. Do you see that brick building across the street? Just over the hill here? That was once a nunnery for St. Peter and Paul's Parish. And in 1932, my husband and I donated the funds to build a chapel addition so the nuns could offer prayers rather than have to walk across the street on cold and blustery days. And since most of the nuns did not drive, my husband Roy and I traveled and transported them to and from our parish to their home base, St. Joseph's Convent in Stevens Point. In 1950, I took a pilgrimage to Rome. It was a long and bumpy flight, but it was worth it. I also got to meet Pope Pius XII, a very controversial man who was accused of being indifferent to the Holocaust and later excommunicated communist Catholics who he called godless. Impressed with my contributions to the church, Pius conferred upon me the title of Papal Lady, which is a special distinction given to very few women. As a result, on September 16, 1951, the La Crosse Diocesan Bishop, John Tracy, presented me with a medal, something I will cherish my entire life. Well, I have to let you go on your way now. I'm just getting to the last decade of the glorious mysteries. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Well, hello there. Do I know you? Who are you from home? From home, I am Rose, the firstborn child of Polish immigrants John and Anna Marsalik. I was born on August 31st, 1890, at home in Squaw Valley, town of Burnside, Trempealeau County, and for my first 3 years, I enjoyed being an only child. Then my brother John came along in 1893. He was followed by Gertie, Elizabeth, Amelia, better known as Molly, Ben, Helen, Alois, Peter, Pelchy, and finally, the baby Catherine. With 10 younger siblings, you can bet I had to step up and help around the house. You'd also think I had a lot of nieces and nephews. All I can say is, if who you are from home is a Marsalik, Manka, Petrick, Schmea, Bouch, Klemick, Kampa, or Wojciech, we're probably related. When I was a young woman, I met John Parish, whose family immigrated from Trempealeau, Poland, when he was just 6 years old. Even though he was 9 years older than me, I fell hard. I was just 21 years old when we were married in the spring of 1912. While John and my headstone is closer to the rectory, I've just taken a stroll here today to visit with my children. Are they all mine? Of course they are. Let me tell you all about them. After we married, John and I took over his parents' farm in Hunts Valley. Within a year, I gave birth to our firstborn, Frances, but sadly she did not survive. Between 1915 and 1917, we lost 4 more babies, all who were stillborn or died shortly after birth. My heart was truly broken, but I prayed hard, and in 1918, my prayers were answered when our son Apollinaire, also known as AJ or Paul, was born. AJ was a fine young man, but I was terrified when he was drafted into the Army during the World War II. After training in the United States, he was sent to New Guinea and then to the Philippines, where he worked in the finance office for the Army Air Corps. From there, he sent me letters telling how the natives were very poor and the Army paid laborers 63 cents and a meal of rice for an 8-hour day of work. He was then sent to Japan until the end of the war and separated from service in 1946. AJ really loved our country, so much that after the war, he remained with the Air Force Reserve and Army National Guard Red Arrow Infantry until 1974, retiring at the rank of Major. He married Florence Scraw, and they lived in the La Crosse area until his death in 1996. Yes, now he and Florence live here too. Our next child, Clara, was born in 1921. After marrying Bruno Rybarczyk, they moved to the Milwaukee area, where Clara worked as a nurse. She and her husband raised 3 daughters, Virginia, Margaret, and Bernadine. The Rybarczyk family later became grandparents to 6 and great-grandparents to 4, totaling just the number of children we had. Clara lived to age 87, and she and Bruno are buried in Cudahy, near where they lived most of their married life. Our 8th child, Marguerite, was born in 1922. Next came Raymond in 1925. Sadly, he didn't survive. 2 years later, in 1927, our youngest son, Vincent, was born at home, just like all of our kids were. But then tragedy struck again. My heart was broken once more in 1928 when Marguerite suddenly died at age 5. Out of our 10 children, she became our 7th little angel. Like his older brother in 1945, when Vince was just 18 years old, he was drafted into the Army. At the time, he had just finished his junior year at Independence High School. Can you imagine a high school kid going to war? Once again, I feared for the safety of my child.
After basic training, I was sent to Italy where I was a shipping clerk. My job was to supply units all over Europe. When the end of the war was announced, the ship Stevens carried me and more than 1,000 other troops arrived at New York Harbor on Christmas Eve. Because of my 19-month deployment, I missed my high school graduation, but I returned to high school and graduated 6 months later with a senior class of 1947. Less than 2 years later, I married Marion Covell, and we started our own family when our son Gary was born.
Although my 3 surviving children had grown up, sadness struck our family the summer of 1947 when my husband John got sick, and after a prolonged illness died at age 66. And now all of our family is here together, except for Clara, who is buried in Milwaukee. Well, it's time for us to get back. The older kids are sitting over there on the porch with John, waiting on coffee, I'm sure. I think I see my great-granddaughter Anna with them. So, who did you say you were from home again?
You boys, over there. What are you doing cutting class? Put down those cigarettes and get back to your room before I paddle you good. Oh, me? I'm just hanging out with some former colleagues. This big stone here belongs to Andres Gara, or AW as he liked to be called. I would see him when we would meet with Bishop McGavick down in La Crosse. I don't know much about him other than what you see here. He was born in Austria in 1886. Didn't know him long. He was only 36 years old when he died in 1922.
So who's who?
This guy over here is Paul Sabota.
I'm Jeff. I'll be here.
He was born in Arcadia in 1885 to Michael Sabota and Agatha Kulig, and was the second youngest of 13 children. Father Paul started his education at St. Peter and Paul Grammar School. He later studied at seminaries in Milwaukee and St. Louis before joining the Archdiocese of Chicago. In 1911, Father Sabota was ordained and celebrated his first Mass right here in St. Peter and Paul. Father Sabota spent more than 56 years as a priest in the areas around Chicago, But in 1968, tragedy struck. While sleeping at the rectory, there, 3 priests, including Father Sabota at age 82, and a housekeeper died. As it turned out, one of the priests had left a car running in the basement garage after a late night call, and all 4 of them were poisoned by carbon monoxide. Now, the smaller stone here, this one belongs to Father Roy Mish. Born in 1934 to Louis and Caroline Mish, he was the youngest of the 3 priests. Father Mish also attended Catholic school here at St. Peter and Paul. But in 1946, his father died, leaving his mom with a baby and 4 other children at age 12 and under. She then moved the family to North Creek, where Father Mish attended St. Michael's Catholic School. In 1960, after Father Mish attended seminary, he was ordained and served at 12 different parishes all over the Diocese of La Crosse during his career. In 2001, following 55 years of service, Father Mish was granted senior priest status. He died in 2015, and his funeral service was presided over by our previous bishop, the Most Reverend Bishop William Callahan. Father Mish still has 3 surviving siblings, including St. Peter and Paul parishioners Mary Peterson of Strum and Marcus Mish here in Independence. What? What did you say? Where's my stone? Who am I? I thought you'd never ask. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in Glasgow, Poland in January of 1879. But my parents, Mr. and Mrs. John Kufel, immigrated here to the U.S. with me, my younger brother Francis, when I was 12 years old. Yes, I am the Most Reverend Monsignor Lucian Kufel. And after moving to the United States, I grew up in Milwaukee, where I rest in peace today. After going to seminary in Detroit, I chose the Diocese of La Crosse for my reign of terror, career. In 1923, I was assigned to Independence, and with 39 years of service here, I am the youngest serving priest in the history of St. Peter and Paul's Parish. Say my name, and it can still make the older kids around here get sweaty palms and tremble with fear. As a matter of fact, I saw a few of them around here earlier. Oh well, off to find those little scoundrels, servers.
Did you see him, Billy? I thought he died in 1962 and went back to Milwaukee.
Yes, Jack, did you?
Oh yeah, I don't want to get anywhere near that guy. When Mark and I skipped Polish lessons to serve Mass last week, the widow gave each of us $1. Once again, he made us open our hands and snatched it away.
Billy, yes, do you remember that time when we had confession? I was in there doing my confession and he yells, "What? You did what? How many times?"
Yeah, and you should have seen the rest of our class. Nobody wanted to go next.
Oh no, I think I see him coming.
Let's get out of here.
When you hear about all the older graves here at St. Peter and Paul, you often hear about really big families. Ours was no different. My name is Benedict Bert Kulig, but some people call me Benny, or Ben, or even Shorty. Yeah, I know. My parents, William and Elizabeth Wench Kulig, were married in 1917. My dad was one of 8 kids, and my mom was one of 16. So it's not surprising that my sister Verna came along less than 2 years after they got married. Next was me in 1920, followed by 8 more brothers and sisters between 1921 and 1930. And then the unthinkable happened. In 1920, just 1 week after my brother William Jr. was born, our mom died. At age 31, my dad was left with 10 kids from ages 0 to 10 and a half. And at the time, my sister Verna was 10 years old, and I was 9. We tried to help out around the house as much as we could, but without our mom, it was a difficult time for both of us. Baby William went on to live with our neighbors, Peter and Catherine Millick, but sadly, he died at age 5 when his appendix ruptured. We also had a housekeeper and relatives stepped up to help raise us. It takes a village, right? In 1933, my dad got married again when my stepmom, Julia Kosek, was just 19 years old. You could say she had the patience of a saint to take on a man with so many kids. Together, she and my dad had 6 more children. That brought up our blended family to 18 people. During my life, it was not uncommon for a family that large, and if you ask anyone in Independence, they'd say the Coolidge family is related to someone, some way, somehow. In 1941, when I was 21 years old, Communist Germany attacked Poland, and their ally Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. In response, the United States entered the World War II. Although the Selective Service Act had been in effect since 1917, I volunteered by joining the U.S. Army. First, I was sent to light artillery gun training in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and then to specialized tank operations training at Fort Benning, Georgia. I was assigned to 2nd Armored Regiment Division. In 1942, my unit shipped from New York, and 12 days later we landed in North Africa. At that time, President Franklin D. Roosevelt was in office. Did you know that for 4 terms in office, he holds the record for the longest-serving president of the United States? This was prior to the passing of the 22nd Amendment in 1951 that restricted presidents to 2 full terms. He also is the only president who was confined to a wheelchair during his presidency, having contracted a paralytic illness before he became the governor of New York on his way to the White House. Shortly after I arrived in Africa, President Roosevelt came here to view the war behind the scenes, and I was one of 11 troops chosen to stand in formation when he arrived. But that wasn't my only claim to fame. As a young corporal, I fired a cannon disabling the Germans' ammunition bunker, stopping their assault against the Allies. The Associated Press picked up the story, and it was shared extensively all over the world, putting me and Independence, my hometown, on the map. After I was promoted to sergeant, my division was sent to England and then on to France. After landing at Omaha Beach just 3 days after the invasion of Normandy, my unit came under fire from the Germans. I was riding point on the outside of the tank when it was hit. I was wounded when I was thrown off my tank, and although it wasn't as bad as some guys, I earned a Purple Heart. In 1943, I and another member of my platoon were caught on camera by the military press, and the picture made the cover of Life magazine. Not everyone can say that Life was a well-known news publication at the time, and because of this, people back home and all over the country knew my name. In the fall of 1944, my unit rolled into Belgium, where we were participating in the Battle of the Bulge. German tanks ending Germany's hope to win the war. During a night maneuver, I was injured a second time when the tank I was assigned to hit a landmine. The explosion took my helmet right off, and I got hurt much worse this time, and it sent me to the hospital for 3 weeks. Because of my injuries, I was awarded a second Purple Heart. But I was anxious to get back to my unit, and when I did, we moved again across the Rhine River. One day, the unit commanders put all of our names in a helmet. My name was drawn. As a prize, I received a pass for a 45-day furlough to go back home. I was only there 3 days when VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, happened. The German army signed an unconditional surrender, ending the war. I went back to Fort Sheridan where my discharge was processed, and then I returned to Trempealeau County. My service awards include 2 Purple Hearts, a Silver Battle Star, a Bronze Battle Star, a Good Conduct Medal, 4 Overseas Service Bars, and numerous other recognitions. I had been in 7 different countries during my 3.5 years of service. Upon returning to the States, I returned to the home farm in Malkuli, where I lived the remainder of my life. I became a member of the local American Legion of VFW and the Knights of Columbus and the Rosary Society at St. Peter and Paul Parish. I also spent several years serving on the Lincoln Township Board. I began dating a local gal, Ruth Sukla, in 1949, and she became my wife. Together we had 3 boys and a girl, celebrating 51 years of marriage before she passed away in 2000. I missed her so much. 1 month later, my time on earth ended too, and we were buried side by side right here at St. Peter and Paul Cemetery. During my life, I helped raise 2 families. I served my country and was a valued member of my church and community. So you ask, if I had the chance, would I do it again? Of course I would. I had a good long life during difficult times. My country and family needed me, and I was proud to step up. You'd have done the same thing, right?
Well, hello. I hope you are enjoying your day. I was just sitting here thinking about how resourceful my generation was. All the things we did when we didn't have the money to buy something. You know, when I was on Saipan during the war, we figured out how to chill a bottle of beer by putting it in a sock and twirling it around to take the moisture, make the moisture evaporate and take the heat away from the bottle. But that was a long time ago. I was born in 1917, the second son of Roy and Helen Liga. You maybe remember Dad. He owned Liga's store. And my mother, was always at the church doing something there. I had an older brother, Mars, and 3 sisters, Agnes or Augie, Rita or Reet, and Teresa or Tisi. I still remember when Dad came home with a pony for Mars and me one day. It was in the rumble seat of his car, if you can believe that. Guess what we named him? It rhymes with pony. Yeah, Tony the Pony. That was one of the happiest days of my life. So who am I? Well, my name is Edmund Liga, but everyone just called me Ed. My friends had another name for me, though. When I was a kid, my best friends were Ernie Sabota, who was known as Sheeny, and Jerome Sabota, or Umpke. They called me Spunt. Grandma Busha gave me the name when she saw me jump off the bridge one day and I came popping up to the surface just like a cork. Sheeny and Umpke were just like brothers to me. If you saw one of us, you probably saw all 3. We were the, what do they call it today, the 3 amigos of our time. I went to grade school at SS Peter and Paul School, where I was an altar boy. Then I went to Independence High School, where I played basketball and baseball and was in the school plays. If you go backstage in the Opera House, you'll see my name on the wall with all the others who were in school plays back then. When I graduated in 1936, Umpke and I both headed to River Falls Teachers College. In 1940, the Selective Service Training and Service Act was passed, and my draft number was 11. But because I had already signed a teaching contract, I got a deferment for a year. Then, in June 1941, I was inducted into the U.S. Army. I trained at Camp Polk, Louisiana, where I was promoted to Staff Sergeant, and that's where I was when Pearl Harbor was attacked. When I heard that, I knew I wasn't going home for a long, long time. After a lot of other training, I made second lieutenant and then was sent to Hawaii to join an artillery unit. I was in Hawaii for a while, but then we went to invade Saipan in the Mariana Islands. On the way, I ran into a ship's officer who I knew from River Falls, and he told me about Umpke, that he had gone down with his ship a year earlier. I took that pretty hard, and I've never forgotten him. After Saipan, we went to the Philippine Islands, Leyte actually, for a while, then boarded ship again and went to the island of Okinawa. Our big 155 millimeter guns were placed on 2 little islets called Keisishima, 8 miles off of Okinawa. From there, we fired the first land-based shots of the invasion. You know, though, by the time Okinawa was over, 225,000 people had been killed. We then were sent to the Philippines again to get ready for the invasion of Japan itself. but fortunately we didn't have to go because the war had ended. In 1946, I was discharged with the rank of first lieutenant, came home where I worked at Dad's store and on his farm for a while before being hired by Lon Tubbs, a Trempealeau County Veteran Service officer, to teach job skills to veterans. I married Bernice Compa in 1950. We had 2 children, Mike and Sue, and we built a house just north of the church here. After job training slowed down, I was hired by Ernie Brickner in, 1955 or 1956 as a teacher at the high school. I taught a lot of different classes over the years and did some coaching. I was principal for a few years, but then retired in 1985. I was active in the American Legion Post 186, where I was Rifle Squad Commander for over 50 years. I also was in the church choir, sang a lot of weddings, and really enjoyed singing Polish songs with my brother and mother at midnight mass. I was also a longtime member of the Elk Rod and Gun Club. I always loved fishing and gardening, and retirement just gave me more time for both. I spent many hours trout fishing, and I think I knew every bass and bluegill in Third Lake at Trempealeau on a first name basis. I always liked spending time with Sheeny, Roman Gimza, and Clarence Slug as we knew him. But Roman and Slug passed away, and my health declined to where I went to live for a few years with Sue's family. I then had to move to the Wisconsin Veterans Home in King, Wisconsin, where I died in 2009 at 91. Today, Bee and I are together, but Sheeny, Umke, and I, the 3 amigos, as well as Roman Gimza, Clarence Sluga, are also together. And Ma and Pa, and Mars, Augie, Reet, TC, and my nephew Helgi, and my wonderful niece, Katie Lee. Well, that's enough about me. I heard the fish are biting in Trempealeau. Anyone want to go? And you know what? I think the Beverly Hillbillies is on tonight. You know something? I think that Jethro is so stupid. Well, thank you for coming to visit today.
And there's the pitch, strike 3. Those words are like music to my ears. I'm Al Kulig. In 1923, I came into this world in Whitehall, Wisconsin, as the youngest of Louis and Anna Slaby's 6 children. My older brothers and sisters included Sister Euphrosyne Kulig of Sisters of St. Joseph, Mary Ann Kulig Schennewick, Tracy Kulig Bouch, and brothers Aloysi and Bernard Kulig. My cousin, Ed F. Kulig, also known as Edda, was also raised by my parents after his mom died. We always considered him our brother. Our parents owned a farm outside of Independence, and believe me, they taught us the importance of hard work. I did so much hoeing that for the rest of my life, I didn't even want to go near a garden. My parents later moved to a house on Highway 121, just east of Independence. While I was in high school, the superintendent, A.J. Anderson, sent a note home to my parents asking their permission for me to try out for baseball. I guess he saw something in me that would make me a good ball player. They consented, and lo and behold, I loved the excitement of the game. After high school, I attended the vocational school in Eau Claire. That is, until I was drafted into the service during World War II. After my basic training, I was assigned as a Navy radar man in the Pacific Theater. While temporarily stationed in Hawaii, I was playing catch with another sailor. A third man was watching us for a while, and then he came up to me. He was a professional baseball scout. And when he asked me if I'd be interested in a professional baseball career, I replied, would I ever? He gave me his card and told me to get in touch with him when I was discharged from the Navy. After my discharge, I called that scout up and I was signed as a pitcher to the St. Louis Cardinals baseball system. I played for 4.5 years throughout the southern United States. When I left the Cardinals, I decided to attend Winona State Teachers College, as it was known at the time. The GI Bill had passed, and that gave me the opportunity to go to college where I majored in biology. As an undergrad student, I also made the college's baseball team, where we were undefeated, winning the conference all 4 years. Several years later, I was inducted into the Winona State Athletic Hall of Fame. During my early career, I had a few no-hitters under my belt. So next, I was signed by the semi-pro South Dakota Basin League. One night, my friend, Pete Scraw, invited me to a party at his house near Green Bay. I was reluctant to go, since professional ball teams insist that we get plenty of rest the night before a big game. They even do bed checks to make sure of it. Well, I decided to go anyways, and boy, it was a long night. After sneaking back in during the wee hours, that morning the manager said, "Kulig, you're pitching." I ended up pitching the best game ever, and Pete yelled, "Kulig, you should go out more often." In 1955, a beautiful young woman, Virginia, better known as Ginny Wright, caught my eye, but I was too shy to ask her out. Since I knew her sister Sylvia, I asked her to intercede for me. For our first date on August 5th, 1955, I took Ginny to the movies to see Not a Stranger, starring Olivia de Havilland, Robert Mitchum, and Frank Sinatra. We hit it off right away, and by our third date, I was sure I had met the woman of my dreams. I summoned the courage to tell Ginny that she was everything I'd been looking for. We were married in September of 1956 and settled into an apartment in Winona, Minnesota. 11 months later, we had our first child. In 1964, Ginny, our 3 oldest children, and I moved back to Independence, where we built a house on Lower Ash Street. I would live there for the rest of my life. I also became one of the first Eucharistic ministers at St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church, serving communion for over 30 years. Although I studied to become a teacher, my brother Bernie was a wholesale candy distributor and offered me a job before I later bought him out. I loved working as the candy man. Who doesn't love candy? And even though times were tough for a lot of people, I loved handing out treats to the children on my Arcadia area route, whether they had money or not. One year, it was so windy on Halloween that I set up a drive-through shop in our garage. You should have seen the smiles when I passed out the largest candy bars many of those kids had ever seen. Over the span of a decade, we had a total of 5 children: Kevin, Kristen, Brian, Sean, and Kimmery. We are proud of all of them. With a fairly large family, Ginny and I didn't have a lot of money, but we had something more important. We had love. We were married for over 50 years, and one of my favorite things to do as a family was, on Sundays, was to take the family to La Crosse or Eau Claire for pancakes. We all were delighted when our granddaughter Sydney and grandson Lane joined our Kulig family. They have brought us so much joy. I can't believe that I'm telling you all of this. My friends would describe me as rather shy, but also a great husband, father, and someone with a good sense of humor. I love to tell jokes, especially while chatting and giving rides to disabled people to and from the Trempealeau County Occupational Rehabilitation Center. We sure had fun. And by the way, did you hear that one about the 2 Polacks and the Norwegian that walked into a bar?
children, take your seats and come to order. Hello, Yakshe Moash. What does that mean? Well, it's how are you in Polish. And if you're good, then you say Dobrze, I am well, in reply. Oh, how I love being a teacher. You must be new to our rural school. Please take a seat. My name is Miss Delphine Marsalic, but I find Delphine quite stuffy, so please call me Della. I'm a third daughter of John and Mary Helen Ressler Marsalic. My dad, John, was born here in Trempealeau County, but my mom was born in Poland, or Germany, or Russia. History is messy. Like my dad's parents, my mom and her family, as well as a lot of the people in Independence, immigrated to the United States from Trempealeau, Poland. While the history of Poland goes back to the 10th century, for more than 6 centuries, invasions and partitions carved parts of Poland, and at various times it became part of Russia, Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia. Confusing, I know. Just remember the word Silesia, which describes the area largely made up of Poland, Germany, and the Czech Republic. It was that place. As I said, I'm the third daughter. My sister Matilda, Tilly, was born in 1902. She was the oldest. My sister Veronica, better known as Verna, was born 3 years later. In 1907, I was born. My sister Tilly married Andrew Pintock, and Verna married Andrew's brother Francis, who was better known as Frank. So Tilly and Verna were sisters, but they were also sisters-in-law. Always close, they died in 1982, less than 2 months apart. After us 3 girls were born, Dad finally got a boy. 4 boys. A year after I was born, my brother Clifford showed up, and then it was Emil. And our parents then took a rest and didn't have Michael until 6 years later in 1915. And then Dominic, Donnie, the baby of the family, in 1919. Most of them worked on the farm, but my brother Mike worked at the Independence Creamery as a butter maker and at the Trempealeau County Health Care Center as a groundskeeper. As for me, after completing high school here in Independence, I became a teacher. For 41 years, I taught at rural schools, including Cripps, New City, Chimney Rock Red Brick School, Plum Creek, and Fox Coulee before finishing my career at St. Peter and Paul. Once I needed a Santa Claus to visit the children in my classroom. Even though he was only 14 years old, I asked my brother Mike to dress up for my class. To the delight of hundreds of area children, he went on to play Santa Claus for 60 more years. I love to fly, and during the summers I often traveled abroad. During these travels, I learned to speak 5 different languages. Because I was fluent in Polish, I was often called upon to translate for the local sheriff's department. And because I wanted to help others learn the Polish language, I used to make folders out of Swanson TV dinner boxes with the Polish alphabet and umlauts neatly written inside them. Of all the boys, my brother Mike was the only one who was drafted and served as a cook in France and other countries across Europe. He and I were very close. We even built houses mere feet away from each other in the 1970s. Same house, but I was clever. I flipped the floor plan. When he was 85 years old, the state thought Mike was too old and infirm to drive a car. They ordered him to appear for a driving test and told him to bring a licensed driver with him. He chose me, and were they ever surprised, because I was 92 at the time, but still had my license. And yes, he passed, for now. I also loved music. and sang in the church choir for many years. I must confess I loved playing the piano, and I played it very well. Not having children of my own, for years I watched as my nieces and nephews, and then great nieces and nephews, sat at my keyboard plunking away on the keys during the holidays. Halloween was my favorite holiday. I enjoyed the kids so. It made me smile when they would come to my house and say, Vishcheshevo, Sliwigo Nowego Roku, also known as Vincevich for me, each January 1st. Although I had suitors, I never married. My life was never dull, and I was happy to live it alone, albeit next to my brother and his family. Did you notice the houses with the same floor plan, but flipped? I also love playing the piano and sorting my many collections and cracking thousands of black walnuts until my arms are brown with stains all the way to my elbows. My physical life ended in 2002 when I was 95 years old. But I still keep busy teaching the children buried here at St. Peter and Paul Cemetery. But school's out for summer, and I think my plane is about to board for a new adventure. Dowidzenia. Oh yes, we haven't gotten to that word in our Polish lesson yet. It means goodbye.
Hi, I'm Deb Marsalik, and I am half of the team that is the chairpeople for St. Peter and Paul's 150th anniversary celebration. In October of last year, St. Peter and Paul kicked off its 150th year. We've had events every single month since that time. Today we are here for the cemetery walk, and that is Voices from the Past. We have our guests walking around the cemetery where we have stations set up. There are 8 performers who are telling the story of individuals that had colorful or unique lives when they were still alive here in Independence. And I'd like to extend a thank you to all of the members of the St. Peter and Paul 150th Anniversary Committee. They've done a great job at helping put together a lot of fun and interesting programs during our anniversary year.
and hut.